What's happening, guys? Hope you're good. Welcome to episode 5 of They Will Know. Today we are at Muscleworks. We're going to be running through a back and leg session. It's going to be about 2.5 hours. We've got a very long session today, but I am ready for it. And in between exercises, I'm essentially going to be running you through how to set up the volume of your sessions. So how many sets should you have? And we'll also run through the rep range of those sets and why you would potentially use certain rep ranges, whether you would do a top set and a back off, or whether you do your standard 3 sets of 12 to 15. All of that will be covered in this video, so speak to you soon. Right, we're going to move into some heavy RDLs now. I'm actually going to try the heaviest RDLs I've ever done. We'll see how the warm-ups go, but in a previous video, a couple of weeks back, you saw me do 220s, and I mentioned that the RDL was the weakest variant of my deadlifts. We are slowly building that up, even in a deficit, so quite happy with how they're coming along. You'll see in the next couple of minutes or so what we build up to, and hopefully we can hit some good reps. One more warm up, and then we're going to go for the big one today. Might try a quarter of a ton, which I've never done before. So let's go. Loose. 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 We'll take that 6 reps in a deficit, 14 kilos down. You can most definitely get stronger during a prep. That is evidence there. I'll just stay at that weight for a while, refine execution, get that to 8 or 9 as my top set. If it doesn't even go up from there for the rest of this prep, I'm not bothered. 250 on RDLs, you know, 300 on conventionals. That's gonna have built tissue in that posterior for when I step on stage. It's just a case now of getting inside out, getting lean, revealing what's there and what's underneath. Into seated home curl now to finish hamstrings. Then we'll go into our upper back work. As you can see, and as you have seen throughout the entirety of my YouTube series, I always run a top set and a back off set. So if you're not aware, a top set and a back off is essentially 2 working sets. The top set is usually anywhere from 5 to 10 reps, and the back off is usually anywhere from, say, 12 to 20. Now, why would you do a top set and a back off? personally, if you're working at the intensity that I feel you should be in your working sets, there isn't really room for 3 or 4 of those, because after I've done the top set, I'm absolutely fried. Then you do your back off. Sometimes my back off feels harder because it's generally higher rep. There's obviously more energy demand as well. Say on something like the deadlift we just did, the back off set, in my opinion, was harder, even though it was a lot lighter. It's because the reps, it's a balance of strength, power, endurance. So with a lot of my clients, and even a lot of the top athletes, bodybuilders, Jordan Peters, Hollingshead, they all now run a top set and a back off to ensure that their volume in their session isn't too much. You want to get the most out of your sets in as little sets as possible. So I would advise using the top set and a back off, and I'll get to some other reasons why in a bit. Pull down, it's targeting mid traps. As I'm coming down from that angle, as I've mentioned in other videos, my upper trap's quite dominant. I need that bit of thickness in the middle, so coming at this angle. So we're going to do these first, then we'll move into the double arm row, which I'll show you after. The key here for the upper back development is in the movement of the scapula. So you can see the shoulder blade protracting and the blade stretching out, and then the shoulder blades retracting. The bicep is only secondary in the movement, so it's a lot of movement in the scapula to get that upper back firing on both of these movements that you see here. Following on from what I was saying earlier with the top set and the back off, let's say you've got 2 to 3 compounds per session and then 2 to 3 isolation movements, right? 6 or 7 exercises per session. A top set and a back off is well enough if you're training at full intensity. So as I said earlier, your top set is generally lower rep and the back off set is generally higher rep. So you're hitting both spectrums. Obviously, you want to hit most rep ranges in your lifting career from say 5 all the way up to 30, 25 to 30, sometimes being on your arm work or your isolation work. And you obviously want to get progressively stronger within that 5 to 30 rep range. A top set and a back off set gives you the chance to progress your heavy set from 5 to 10, and your back off set gives you a chance to progress your 12 to 20 rep sets or your 12 to 30 rep sets. If you're coming in doing 3 or 4 sets of everything, 10, 12, 15, 20, it's very, very hard to train with the intensity on your 3rd and 4th set the same as you did on your 1st and 2nd. It's near on impossible to keep that intensity up for that many sets. So at that point, by the 3rd or 4th set, or some of you doing 5 or 6 sets, the intensity is diminishing as the sets are going on. By that point, you're doing what's just called junk volume. You're impeding recovery for your next session for no benefit or no reward. So the only time I would potentially program 3 sets of a compound is when you have a beginner or novice lifter who can't train to failure, or they don't know what true failure is. I'll explain more on that soon. So, as I mentioned a minute ago, when some clients come to me and they're true beginners, I wouldn't necessarily program a top set back off because they don't know what training to failure is. They first need to learn what training to failure feels like. People think they're training to failure. This is not just in beginners. This is in some intermediate advanced lifters as well. They're leaving reps in the tank without realizing. So they're not necessarily training to full failure. If you're training 1 or 2 reps away from failure, you're still stimulating some decent growth. But the top set and the back off is perfect for someone who can train at that all-out intensity because they're getting the most out of them 2 working sets. Someone who can't produce that power and intensity, you might give them a couple more sets because the volume is cumulative. They're not training to failure, but they're doing 3 or 4 sets as opposed to training to true failure, but just doing 2 sets like myself today. When I say 2 sets, I mean generally the compounds. Like when I do isolation movements, side raises, cuff flies, pec flies, arms, I sometimes do 3 working sets. But even thinking back to how I used to train, I used to do like 6 sets of deadlifts. But then I realised I wasn't doing nothing else after those deadlifts, and I was probably resting about 10 minutes between. So I was burning myself out on one exercise and not allowing for improvement or growth or progression on all of the other movements in the session. Since joining Cal, you could really say I've only been bodybuilding for 18 to 20 months, because that's when I started training with that top set, back off set approach. Before then, I trained hard, still trained to failure, but my volume was too high. I would feel under-recovered for some of my sessions, and that's why I was stuck in a rut. As soon as I joined Cal, I've changed everything, and I've packed on the most size that I ever have within that 18 months. So if you're a beginner, and you want to learn how to train to failure, maybe do 3 working sets, have a top set and then maybe 2 back offs. But as you get to advanced lifting and you're lifting heavy weights, sometimes, you know, these boys, JP, another guy called the Scottish Titan, who's one of Cal's clients, stiff-legged deadlifting like 320 for 8. He only does 1 working set, because if he does any more, he impedes his recovery for the following session. So if you're really advanced, top set and back off is way enough in your compounds. Do not be doing 4 or 5 sets. You are not progressing. You will get to a certain point, you'll still change and improve your body, and then after 2 years of that, you'll stall out, and you'll just find it, you won't be able to improve your logbook doing that much volume. Especially if you're doing 2 sessions each week of the same muscle groups, like if you're hitting push twice and pull twice, but that's a conversation for another day that we'll run through. We'll probably do a bro split versus twice a week frequency, twice a week body part frequency, so that will be in a future video. Wanted to get some blood in the quads on that set. That was a bit more than a warm-up, but nowhere near failure. So to finish today, I'm going to do 3 working sets of this, purely because I'm not doing extensions. So I'm only doing 3 sets of quads today, and then I'll do my leg down Friday. This Cybex allows you to get loads of knee flexion and come down nice and deep to get a full stretch of that quad. So I'm putting my foot placement quite low down on the pad, letting those knees travel over the toes whilst keeping my heel down. So let's have it off with 3 sets here, heavy. Oh yes. Come on. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. Prep series is flying at the moment. I'm enjoying every minute. Training is well, cardio's going well, eating is going well. Feeling a little bit fatigued today, but that's expected. 10.5 weeks until the first dance, until I get to display what I am made of, because listen, people will doubt you no matter what you do in life, and I've had a ton of that growing up. This is a time for me to put my name out there on the map, and I'm gonna make sure I do everything I can to bring the best package in 10.5 weeks. Thank you for staying tuned. Please like the video, subscribe. I will see you in the next episode.